Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu, salamu rasulullah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The topic today, out of the 19 days of COVID-19 video series, we're up to day 17, subhanAllah, is master your emotions and discover the truth about, tawakkul, reliance upon Allah, putting our trust in Allah, in accepting the Qadr of Allah, and what mastering our emotions has to do with that, subhanAllah. So you've heard me speak about so many different topics over these last weeks, and it's all kind of leading to this point here, which is what is in the way, or what is really needed right now in this time where there's so much uncertainty. There's a lot of death that we're witnessing, maybe not personally, but at least through the news globally. A lot of fears arising about what's going to happen, what is happening, how that will all unfold. A lot of concerns around how we're going to experience this Ramadan. So there's a lot of emotions rising. There's a lot of relationships that are really struggling because with this extra tension, it's been like the straw that's broken the camel's back, as they say. Excuse our local birds, they're noisy lot. I thought I'd sit outside. I'm sick of being inside. And so relationships have extra stress, and so those relationships that was challenged before this happened are extra challenged, and so we see a lot of relationships struggling. We see a lot of parents struggling with children because everybody's sort of sick of being at home. Kids really looking to, get out and about more, not sleeping well at night because they're, haven't had enough running around. They're also picking up the tension from the adults as well, so the tension is being felt by the kids, and so they're off track as well. So we've got so much we've got so much of emotional heat going on at the moment, and the key thing is relying upon Allah, understanding that this is in Allah's hands, that we can put our trust in Allah, that Allah is sufficient for us. And there's so many verses in the Quran that can help us understand how to perceive this. But the challenge comes up with how. I get lots of sisters go, yeah, I get that intellectually, but I'm still feeling frustrated or fearful or stressed or anxious, or that they're still struggling with their feelings. And so there's kind of a catch-22 here, that in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find rest. So the solution really is in remembering Allah and being in that space, and then you feel at rest. But what tends to be the barrier to remembering Allah is the emotions that are getting in the way. And so this session is all about understanding that, and why it's so important for us to learn about our emotions, learn about how we operate emotionally, so that we can master our emotions. And notice the language I use is master your emotions, not manage your emotions, because it's not about managing them at all. Mastering them is about understanding them. When you master something, you really understand something, you really know something. So all the time through these videos, I've been telling you feelings come from thought in the moment, and that is the key to it all. And this is the missing link, that yes, some other psychological concepts out there may talk about thought, feelings, and then behavior. And I certainly hear when I talk about this that it reminds people of CBT, sometimes it reminds people of NLP, all these other sorts of things. But there's a fundamental difference with what we understand. we don't divide thought up into different types of thought or try to look at what the thought is or the content of the thought. We just understand that it is thought. And by bringing it together as this one concept of it's thought that is behind these feelings, and that's all that's creating the feelings that we're having around the situation that's going on, helps actually diffuse those feelings. So when you really understand that, instead of having such intense feelings that last a long time, the intensity of the feelings is less and they pass much quicker. So we're not saying or even aiming for not having feelings at all. That's why we're not trying to manage our feelings. We're talking about actually understanding them so that when we have feelings, we don't put a story around them or get too engrossed in them, that we can have those feelings and our behavior can still be pleasing to Allah. Because this is one of the areas where it gets difficult is, for instance, if you get angry, sometimes you'll say or do something to someone that you don't really mean because you're angry. And we're accountable for what we say and do. So being able to understand our emotions so that our behavior isn't affected by our emotions is really important. We're not saying we don't have emotions. The Prophet ﷺ showed emotion many, many times in the stories that we hear through the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. So we're not aiming to be emotionless, but we do need to be able to manage our behavior to still be pleasing to Allah despite the emotional responses we're having. And that is the key. And that is what we teach and how understanding the implications of our feelings coming from thought in the moment are. So most other models out there you'll hear, it's about application. So applying this in your life. For us, it isn't about applying it in your life. It's about when you understand it, then there's natural implications. So what we believe is that, in fact, you were born on the fitrah, just like everybody else, right? We know that. That's part of our deen. And because we have been born on the fitrah, we were born innately with that belief in Allah, with that natural innate state of resilience, confidence, patience, all of the things that we need to be the best Muslim. But along the way, we have been influenced one way or another. And as a result of that influence, we have learned things and remembered things, and now we're filtering our understanding of life. Of course, a plane has to go overhead. It's actually quite noisy outside, isn't it? I'm not sure if you can hear that. Often there's noises I can hear, but you can't hear. But the point is, over time, our natural innate state has been altered through the experiences we've had, what we've learned, what we've been taught, what we've come to understand. So as immature beings, when we were children, things would happen and we would have our own child-like understanding or perception of what happened and believe that that's what it meant. So some examples might be, and this wasn't even, I wasn't that young, I was about 12 or 13, when I came home with a report card that had 7 A's and 2 B's, right? So most parents you'd think would be quite happy with that. One of the A's was an A+ for maths, but I got a B for English. So when all that could be said was, why did you get a B for English? Instead of being proud of my report, and I don't mean proud in an arrogant way, but just pleased with myself for the effort that I had put in, because I had put in a lot of effort, I marked that down as, C, I'm not good enough. because there were a number of things that happened that I had interpreted as not being good enough. And so I was collecting this story of not being good enough. And that story of not being good enough, played out a role in my adulthood. Alhamdulillah, I don't have that underlying belief anymore. But I'm just explaining to you how some of these things can evolve in our life. So when you're talking about other types of concepts or processes or theories in how to resolve these things as adults, as you may be aware that you have things going on for you that are preventing you being able to be calm right now, that's perhaps spiking your anxiety or your stress levels or your frustration levels, or having the kids at home under your feet all the time. You might not be able to find that tolerance or patience and compassion that you really want. And sometimes these reactions are coming from things that we have stored up as our way of seeing ourselves or seeing things. And it's all thought in the moment, but we don't go down looking for what was the incident that happened that started that, what is triggering that. We actually go, well, actually, if I'm having that reaction, I'm having some thought that is creating that reaction. I'm having some thought. It might be an intrinsic memory. It might be an expectation that I have around the situation. It might be assumptions I've made, but it's all still thought. We don't want to be trying to dissect that thinking or that thought, because that just makes it really hard. It becomes like a needle in the haystack to resolve everything. Especially, at my age, I've accumulated so many years of all these things that would then have to be resolved. So alhamdulillah, that's not necessary. This is something quite different, where when you come to understand that all that we are experiencing is coming through thought in the moment, that our behavior is a result of that, and that if we understand that our feelings come from thought in the moment and the implications of that, so some of the implications being separate realities, that each and every one of us are living this moment in our own personal reality of it through our own thought in the moment, and what that means in terms of relationships, and that one's very powerful to understand. So what happens is, as we come to understand these things, those thought patterns that we had fall away without us addressing them directly. So I didn't have to address directly the fact that I had a people-pleasing behavior pattern, that I had a victim behavior pattern, that I had a behavior that I wasn't able to say no or set limits or, have boundaries around myself, healthy boundaries. That none of that was part of who I was before. And I don't say it was who I was anyway. It was just thought that was stuck thinking that was a barrier to having those natural boundaries and that natural ability to say no when something's not right. What happened was, through some very profound insight and understanding into this paradigm, that fell away. I didn't address it directly. I didn't have to. So suddenly, a challenge I was having, which was my teen boys, they were teens and then, now they're 19, 22, so we're talking about 4 years ago now. I couldn't set limits with them. I had so much stuck thinking, so much going on from all the abuse that I'd experienced at the hands of men, that now that they became like men, I couldn't set limits with them. And they needed me to so desperately. They were at an age where they're like racing cars without brakes. The things that are going on in their brain development means that it was very hard for them to put the brakes on and not do stupid things and make silly decisions. And they needed me to be there for them. And they fell into so many problems. And I wasn't able to be part of the solution of that until this happened. And I knew that I needed something to shift for me to be able to be there for them as the mother that they needed. So I made dua to Allah. That's where this started, is I made dua to Allah, and more dua and more dua. And then Allah led me to this. And then Allah gave me the insight and the understanding that I needed, that shifted things for me, that I could at one stage stand between the two of them when they were so angry that I don't know if you've ever seen this in your children, but there's like a look in their eyes like they would really like to kill the other child. And I'm not talking about little kids here. I'm talking about 6'4", 6'5", really older teen boys, right? They were so angry from all the abuse that we had been through. There was so much stuff going on for them that they were taking it out on each other, and I was standing in between them, and I didn't feel any fear. Even though the younger one had bought, knuckle dusters, the metal things that you can put on there, so if you hit someone, you could pretty much kill them. He had bought some of those from eBay, and he had on both hands. And I've got him on one side, and I've got the other one on the other side. And I was so calm. We were in the front yard. Some of the neighbours had come out to watch, so that was a little bit embarrassing, but I didn't even care about that in that moment. In that moment, I was so present, knowing that both of my boys were hurting in that moment, and that there was this massive volcano of hurt exploding in them, and that they needed somebody to help them get back into their sanity, because they were in like a moment of insanity. So I had a hand on each of their chests, like one there, looking at each of them, and I'm going, you're going for a walk to the eldest one, because taking into consideration his prefrontal cortex was more developed than the other one, that maybe he might at least be able to step back and walk away. Telling the other one, no, you're not going to hit your brother. And then he was saying to me, if you don't get out of the way, I'll hit you, right? But I wasn't scared of that, because I knew deep down in my heart that that's just the pain talking, and that he wouldn't. And I really trusted in that moment that in Allah, that Allah wouldn't allow me to be harmed. And I wasn't. And my calm and being able to stand there between them was actually what helped them separate. The elder one walked away, went for a walk like I asked, gave me chance to be with the younger one and calm him down, because he was the one who had been hurt in the moment, and so he was the one that felt the most injustice in that moment. So I helped with him, got him calmed down, the other one came back, and then I spent time with him. But I wouldn't have been able to do that before, because I would have been so fearful. I would have been worried about getting hurt. I would have been worried about them getting hurt. My head would have been filled with so many stories about how they're going to turn into abusive adults and all this sort of thing, instead of seeing what was really happening in that moment, which was just mountains of years of hurt coming out of them through anger. All the injustice that they'd experienced coming out of them through anger. I could see that clearly, so I knew how to behave in that moment without planning. It was instinctual. And that is what mastering your emotions is all about. That you get to a place where you can live in this present moment and know exactly what to do, so that it doesn't matter what challenge you're faced with, you don't lose yourself emotionally. You're able to put your trust in Allah, accept the Qadr of Allah, that this is what is your test right now, and know what to do for the sake of Allah intuitively in that moment, subhanAllah. And that's what happened in that moment. Actually, subhanAllah, when I was thinking through what I was going to talk to you about today, didn't even know that story was going to come up as the example that I would share with you, subhanAllah. But obviously, it's a pretty powerful example of what the difference is. So before I had this understanding, I was very much a victim. I would have acted like a victim in that situation. I would have been screaming. When the neighbour shouted out and said, "Do you want me to call the police?" I probably would have said, "Yes, please do," because I would have felt out of control. Instead, I said, "No, it's okay, I've got this." And my neighbours got to witness a Muslim woman standing between two men, obviously my sons, able to take charge of the situation. So in a way, while it was not ideal for them to see such anger out of Muslims, given that the rhetoric around the world about Muslims, I think everyone's more worried about coronavirus at the moment than us, so that's kind of a good relief in that way. Let's look at all the blessings. But in that time, Muslims were definitely under the spotlight. But they were able to see a Muslim woman being powerful, a Muslim woman taking charge, seeing us, as human beings and resolving a very heated situation in a very powerfully calm way. And I think that is probably amazing dawah. Allahu alim, I haven't gone to ever ask them about that. And I haven't ever felt embarrassed in front of them for them having witnessed that either. My neighbor on one side often mows the front of my lawn. The neighbor across the road always says hello. So nobody seems to have thought differently of us having witnessed that. So I don't fill my mind with all of these thinkings, all this thinking that prevents me from being confident, from being calm, from being courageous. Well, actually, I don't even feel like I need to be courageous, because being courageous means that you have to overcome fear to do something. I don't feel fearful of Allah's creation anymore. Maybe occasionally something will pop into my mind and I'll have a moment, but I don't really sit here and worry about what are people going to say, what are people going to do. I know that my job is to show up for the sake of Allah in the best way I possibly can and do what I can in any given moment. So yeah, pretty intense topic. I didn't quite mean to necessarily go into that particular life event, but I guess Allah guided me to that to really show you the power of this understanding. And I want to invite you to learn more about this with my program called Peaceful Hearts. I've called it Peaceful Hearts because it's in the remembrance of Allah to hearts find rest. And the whole key message all the way through of it is to bring us back to that connection with Allah and understanding what is in the way of our connection with Allah, which is basically our thoughts and emotions. So how we can actually have a good connection with Allah through that thinking and the feelings falling away. And then through that, being able to live a life one moment to the next where we're asking ourselves, what is Allah expecting of me right now? What do I need to do right now to please Allah? That is the overall global aim of the Peaceful Hearts program, which you can find at heartsfindrest.com. It is the sort of program that out there people are charging around $1,000 for. But I know this is important for our ummah, and there's no way I'm going to charge that. And normally I would actually charge $99 for the program, but I'm still not even going to charge you that, because I feel at the moment that this knowledge is so important with what we're going through, that we need our ummah to be strong, that basically I'm giving you the program at $49, which is a steal, honestly, for what's in there. It's 10 weeks, so you've got 10 full weeks of training for $49, and each week it gives you the next step of the puzzle, the next piece of the puzzle to understanding your emotions, so you too can have the understanding that I have, that helped me be there for my boys in that moment, and so many other situations. There's so many other stories I could share with you. Hopefully that story was powerful enough. And I know Pia was on here before. She's one of my students, and she was saying something, but I didn't get a chance to read it. Sort of popped on my screen and disappeared again. She can attest, if she's still here, to the fact that, for her as well, she's had some very profound shifts in her life, in her relationships. Actually, when I finished editing them, I have some video testimonials of the students that have just been through the program as well. I'll put them on this page, heartsfindrest.com, once I've had a chance to edit them as well. But I'll get there, inshallah, and I will share them, because this is so important, that we're mastering our emotions, that we're able to rely upon Allah, that in every given situation we don't have fear actually holding us back, that we have in fact this calm, this confidence, the patience, resilience, to be able to step up and do what it is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala needs us from us in that moment, and that our behavior remains pleasing to Allah, that we say and do what pleases Allah, that we don't find that our emotions lead us down a path of doing something displeasing. Isn't that what this life is about? Isn't that what this test is all about? SubhanAllah. I just want for my sisters and brothers in Islam and the kids, although they are brothers and sisters as well, right? What I have for myself. And that is that whatever the tests are that Allah sends me, I know I'm going to be okay. So I can step up in my best self and navigate those tests in the best way I possibly can, alhamdulillah. And that's what this life is about. That's all this life is about, subhanAllah. I found that moving beyond those experiences and being okay regardless of the actions of these men have happened finally without having to keep rehashing the story, without having to find out why they did what they did. Exactly, that's a brilliant explanation. So we don't need to know why they did it. We don't need to rehash it. When it falls away, we can actually even be okay with those men themselves. So in Pia's case, it's not a case of having thrown all those men out of her life either. And some of them are still people that are basically ties of kinship, and she's been able to have a relationship with them like she didn't have before. And, alhamdulillah, that's beautiful. This is the Peaceful Hearts program is a steal. It's really going to open your eyes to something that or an understanding that you've probably never heard before, or not in this way at least. It's a very, very small investment, subhanAllah. Oh, here's Ada. Ada has also done the program, saying it's an eye-opener. So this is pretty cool. I can put the comments up here. That to just understand your feelings, thoughts, how and when to deal with it. Alhamdulillah. I mean, we'd suggest anyone take the opportunity to do something for themselves. Jazakallah khair, Ada, for sharing that. By the way, I didn't ask these sisters to be here and say these things. They just happened to be here, alhamdulillah. So Jazakallah khair for your testimonial, sisters, because really, may Allah reward you by you sharing your experience and encouraging others. Inshallah, you get the reward also for anyone who joins and benefits, subhanAllah. So heartsfindrest.com, go and have a look. Check it out. Ask me any questions you have about it. I don't mind. Here we go. Amy's here as well, mashallah. So Amy is also one of my up-and-coming coaches. Yes, finding peace in my last days of pregnancy and envisioning my peaceful birth with my health and my healthy baby. No fear or anything in the way, no matter what is going on in the outside world. And now is the time, if you were pregnant and about to give birth, that a lot of fears may well arise, because with the hospitals being filled with sick people, you may feel like, wow, I'm not sure, I want to be in that hospital environment myself with a newborn baby. However, as Amy said, she's not feeling that fear, because we put our trust in Allah. We know that everything is written. What's going to happen is going to happen, and that Allah has said that He won't burden us with more than we can bear. So whatever it is, we'll be able to deal with it. So Pia is saying again, there's no doubt in my mind that the Inside Out paradigm is 100% solution to all the issues that you have. Yeah, subhanAllah. That's why I say challenge me, whether there's something that you've got going on that this wouldn't be the answer to, because we all believe, those of us who have experienced what life is like to live with this understanding of how we experience life, all of us can see how this is the solution to everything, and that's why we're all so passionate. So Pia is one of my certified coaches. Amy is almost there and very close, hopefully before her baby arrives, inshallah, have her certified as well. And Ada is from my mastermind program. So these are sisters that are here very passionate about this work because it's the difference it's made in all of our lives, subhanAllah. And I can't wait to share it with those of you who decide to join, inshallah. So I might leave it at that. I'm so pleased to have had you here. I've kept you all for half an hour now, so subhanAllah. Do check it out at least. Check it out. Pray istikhara. If it's meant to be, it'll be. If it's not, it's not. And that's the way that works. But pray istikhara. If you've got challenges joining, reach out and talk to me about them, because I really don't like people to have logistical reasons that are preventing them from joining something that will benefit them. So just reach out and talk to me. I would rather have you in the program than not. And so we'll find a way, inshallah. So, subhanaka Allahumma bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. See you in tomorrow's session where we're talking about Ramadan rituals. Inshallah, I will re-record yesterday's session and post it in the group. Oh, look, here's Halima. She's also in my mastermind and has done Peaceful Hearts. There you go. She said it is an amazing learning journey. Jazakallah khair. Look at all of the people joining us, subhanAllah. Jazakallah khair for sharing that, Halima. And yeah, just stay safe, stay healthy, put your trust in Allah, and you'll be fine, because Allah will not burden you with more than you can bear. And just remember, you are okay, and we are here to help make sure you feel okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.